right, joining me this week on Coatings Decoded is the Executive Vice President of Taney, Corey Brown. Hey, Corey, how's it going?
Hey, Jack, I'm well. And yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm finally glad to be recording one of these in the afternoon, so I'm a little bit more energetic and awake.
God, you sound energetic.
Well, that's kind of the gig, isn't it?
That's the gig. You're the host, man. You got to bring the energy.
So before I joined Taney, you started a series on this podcast about flash rust. Do you want to catch our listeners up real quick on what you guys talked about previously?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Taney's been testing a lot of additive technology for many years regarding flash rust, just because we like to test things. We like to be knowledgeable about the products that we manufacture. We like to be knowledgeable about other products that our customers are using. And so we do our best to learn everything we can. And we've learned a lot over the years about additives that can be used to prevent flash rust, but we still don't know everything. We did start a podcast. We talked about a great many things, but I know that these folks at Corrosion Innovations truly are the experts in the business. And so I'm excited to have them on and talk to them more today and really just explore this whole subject matter.
Yeah. So as Corey mentioned, we're thrilled to be joined by the fellas over at Corrosion Innovations. And this is a great crew of people. If you've ever met them, they do not hesitate to have a good time. Joining me today, we have Jeremy Day, their Chief Technical Officer, Matt Valentine, their Vice President of Sales, Greg Taney, the President, and then last but not least, Marlin Lester, the Chief Executive Officer. Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having us.
Thanks for having us. Good afternoon.
Likewise. Thanks for coming.
All right. So as Corey mentioned, you guys kind of are the experts when it comes to flash rust and preventing flash rust. Give us a little bit about who Corrosion Innovation is and what you guys do.
Okay. Corrosion Innovations is a soluble salt removing and flash rust prevention and flash rust removing products company that also provides test kits to multiple industries internationally. We formed this group, started forming it at the worst time possible during COVID 2020, and we were able to survive and make some acquisitions in the process. But we put together some unique products, a unique group of individuals that come from every aspect of the industry, from your side to the contracting side to teaching for AMP to the distribution and equipment side. So we have a very unique group that forms Corrosion Innovation.
Yeah, and full disclosure, Matt and I worked together at a different manufacturer in a previous lifetime, so we know each other fairly well. So we've talked about flash rust. You guys, let's give an overview to those who may not be familiar. When we talk about flash rust, what are we talking about?
We're talking about a natural deposit that occurs on blasted raw steel that is due to atmospheric contamination from soluble salts. When soluble salts are present in the atmosphere, the salts actually render the electrolyte in the atmosphere more conducive to corrosion. So it speeds up the corrosion process. It actually helps the corrosion process begin. And flash rust is basically a layer of iron oxide that naturally deposits on the surface when in presence of an electrolyte.
And Jeremy, that's an incredibly technical definition that I've come to expect from experts like yourself. I like it.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the past, we've always just kind of thought of flash rust as just if there's moisture present, but you're talking a lot about soluble salts specifically, and I suppose there's a real good reason why you want that to be part of that technical definition you gave.
Yes, sir. If we're in exposure with an electrolyte that's completely pure, that has no soluble salts in it, it is not an efficient electrolyte for the corrosion process, corrosion being an electrochemical process. So when you add salts to the mix, that's what makes the electrolyte conducive to that corrosion cell, and it makes an efficient electrolyte for the corrosion process.
Wow, I never really completely understood it to that level. Like Corey said, I always thought about it as water. And for those of you, if it's not ringing any bells, that's the acme that makes up your corrosion cell, your anode, cathode, metallic pathway, and electrolyte. So it's kind of interesting that the higher content of electrolytes in that water, the heavier rate of corrosion.
Yes, sir. Salt is an accelerator of corrosion because of osmotic pressure. And Corey, you did a great job in explaining in the previous podcast the corrosion cell and ACME and anodes, cathodes, metallic pathways. You did an excellent job with that. But diving a little deeper, that salt actually is what makes the electrolyte efficient. If we had just a pure electrolyte, the corrosion wouldn't excel the way it does. You get osmotic pressure that builds up underneath the coating. Even if we coat over a salt contaminated surface, it actually increases the osmotic pressure behind the coating and allows more moisture to flow through the coating. One problem that we have in the industrial coatings industry is the fact that all of our coatings are permeable to a certain extent. We've got some that are less permeable than others, some that don't allow things to flow in and out of them as readily as others, but all of them, a moisture molecule can get through all of the coatings that we have available. So when it's like, I always give the analogy when you go to a restaurant and they have the salt shaker full of rice and you wonder, why is that? Well, you're in a moist environment and that rice is actually collecting all of the moisture so that the salt can be shaken out of the shaker. So that said, salt loves moisture. It pulls in tons of moisture. So if you do coat over a salt contaminated surface, that osmotic pressure builds up, the corrosion cell increases because that's actually an accelerator of corrosion itself. So then you get into more and more problems like osmotic blistering and extreme coating failure, undercut, things like that. So in the wash phase, it's best to take care of these issues. And one thing that's been really great that we've had a lot of success with is the SP8 system, where we're able to reclaim a flash rusted surface where that iron oxide layer is actually rendered water soluble, and we can rinse it away. And in that case, we're actually cleaning all the salt. We're putting the steel in a passive state, and it's fighting off that natural deposition of the unpure electrolyte.
Yeah, I tell you what, you guys, this is one thing, since you guys have made the acquisitions you've made in recent times, you really are doing a great job of kind of consolidating the conversation around these things. It has been highly technical for a number of years, and there have been a few different approaches to the conversation. I really like the way you guys explain it, and I really like the way you kind of center the conversation on that SP8 product, which is the most recent product that Taney has tested and found to do precisely what you all claim it can do. It's a very fantastic product. We've had a great time looking at it. And I wonder if you want the chance just to talk a little more about that and what it does and helping mitigate some of the effects that you're talking about.
I'm gonna jump in there. The SP8 product, it was actually Jeremy and I one night very late. We realized that we'd named the product when it came out. It was named Corrosion 200, and it was a two-part system. One night, Jeremy and I were going back and forth, and we realized that we actually had a product that was an AMP standard, and that's where we went to SP8. And the sales of SP8 versus the original version there's no comparison because it is an AMP standard. But just to go into what it does and get off of the SP8 name, which we're very proud of, what it does is it removes all flash rust and all contaminants, and it's changing the way that people are doing their business. A lot of our clients are using it in a manner to where they're seeing the full cost effectiveness. And one of the things we go in and tell people is how it's being used. We're in an industry that you have to have certain conditions to work in, period. Other trades can work. We cannot. We've got to have certain atmospheric conditions to work in. Well, that stops work and shuts work down and causes delays and all like that. Well, if you eliminate those delays, you've provided significant savings to the client. Real numbers. There's nothing to it that's not real. When you give them back a quarter of those weather days, half of those weather days, 3/4 of those weather days, you've put money back into their pocket for productive man hours. You've kept people working that work in a seasonal trade sometime, working longer. You've also given them a tool in their toolbox that allows them to be more dynamic in how they assess things that are dictated by the weather.
That's perfect, Marlin. And we've actually got an opportunity right now. Basically, what the product does is it allows the blasters to continue forward through those rain delays, through the weather delays, the bad days, and just keep pressing forward. Once they get to a point to where they're ready to paint, they can remove all of the abrasive, get everything cleaned out, move their blast equipment to another job if they want to, and then come back and spray this gel on the surface, let it dwell for 20 minutes. And what it does is renders the iron oxide water soluble. At that point, after 20 minutes, you rinse it with an alkaline rinse, and that renders the steel passive. You're rinsing with an alkaline material that is high enough alkaline to where it causes the steel to go into passive state. And we've got an opportunity now. There's a tank out there. I won't say who or when or where, but the contractor bid it with no containment on an open top tank in Texas in the summer. And they think it's going to take them a month. And, we're telling them no. And this is the perfect place for use for this, because they can just continue and blast. They don't have to worry about the weather ruining their blast. They can just move forward and then clean everything out and then paint when they're ready to paint. And there's never been a product in the industry like that. I grew up in this industry as a blaster painter, and I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, I think the first time I saw it, I had a reaction very much like, literally, I called this episode The Future of Fighting Flash Rust for a reason, because traditionally we've had to fight flash rust from a preventative measure, right? We have to treat it at the front of the job, whether it's DH or using something like the standard chlorid or hold tight 102, which you guys have acquired recently, which is a whole nother part of this conversation. But this is really moving in a direction that is industry changing, because we've just beat it into people's heads that DH is required in any kind of humidity environment, because that humidity, those salts in the air, will drive that flash rust. Well, now you guys are telling me we can just spray something on it and come back a couple hours later and wash it off, 20 minutes later, wash it off, and I'm ready to go.
That's right.
Absolutely. Brings it back to its original comeliness.
Yep. And seeing is believing. You don't really believe that it does exactly that until you see this stuff work. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, my reaction was in disbelief too. And talking to you gentlemen, of course, prompted us to perform. And we're Taney. We love to test everything and just make sure to the nth degree that everything does what we think it will. And multiple people now are believers because we were able to see it, touch it with our own hands, and see what it does. And it really does. It's an amazing product. It's doing great things.
Yes, sir. We appreciate that, Corey.
Well, and it's a two-part system, right? So if you use the gel and rinse together, you're looking at removing flash rust. But the rinse by itself has a lot of good reasons for using it as well, right, guys? Just as a standalone system.
That's right.
Correct. Yes.
Absolutely.
This product runs a lot cleaner than our other products. The other products that we have traditionally been used in blasting equipment, vapor blasting equipment, slurry blasting equipment, UHP equipment, and it just runs cleaner. The rinse actually conditions better. It prolongs the internal parts of the equipment. It just does amazing things that, we didn't really expect.
Yeah, I know from some testing I've seen personally that it also increases bond strength in between coats in situations where amine blush has been present. Compared to other cleaning methods, the SP8 rinse actually increased the adhesion strength of a blushed surface. So
was that in a previous life, Jack?
Well, I was going to leave that part out. But there's a lot of things besides flash rust that you guys can fight with this. But we've brought it up in this conversation, and we might as well talk about it. That's your Cadillac. That's the world-changing thing. That's the SP8 rinse and gel system under the Chlorid name. So that means you guys acquired Chlorid, and you brought those legacy products, whether it's the Chlorid or Hold Blast. And then along with Chlorid, you guys recently acquired Hold Tight, which also has a huge specification base with the Hold Tight 102. So what's the master plan here between the original Chlorid SP8? I joked before we hit record that it's like Pinky in the Brain, total world domination, but what's going on here, guys?
That's just in Marlin's nature.
I came from the contracting side, and this was considerably different where, it's a lot more time consuming to get, products approved and move along faster. So I had chloride in my sights from day one, and hold tight was a little further back, and actually told our board of directors I would resign if we didn't buy it. I was that serious about it. And they took me serious, and they went through with it. And now you can ask them, they said it's the best thing we ever did. And it was. We looked at the specifications and time it takes to get approval and spec'd in and things like that. And to me, it was a no-brainer. I talked with my business partners that are sitting here along beside me. And they said, Marlin, we need to do this. We were fortunate enough to gain Matt Valentine and Ken Rossi in the process, 2 industry veterans that have a lot of things to bring to the table that were watching what we were doing on the other side and, appreciated what we were doing. And the first thing that we did was we put the product, the SP8, in a chloride bucket, and the sales went crazy. And right now we're in the process. We've sold hold tight SP8 because of the knowledge that people have these are 2 30-year companies, been in business for 30 years, survived the test of time and a couple of acquisitions by companies, not hold tight, but chloride, by companies that weren't from our industry, and they still survived without the attention that was needed. So it was a no-brainer to us to acquire these companies, put this new product in it where it had been approved rather than a new name, new group, all of that, and see where it headed. And thus far, it's been very, very fruitful for us.
Yeah, it got a little bit weird there for a minute, didn't it, Matt? In that chloride roller coaster.
Just a little bit. Best thing that could have happened to me and the brand, trust me. Absolutely.
So for now, you guys continue to plan on making all of the major legacy products along with the SP8 gel and rinse?
We're making new products that we haven't even launched yet.
Yes.
Oh, do you guys care to discuss those, or do we want to keep those in the bag for a little bit? Yeah. We'll have to have you guys on a podcast next year for that. I like it the way you play it.
You guys.
We got a little,
Jack, I would say, one of the things that we'd also like to address here is, there's been multiple people that have been a little confused about the acquisitions. We've got several questions as to, what's the focus of the company moving forward? Which brand are you going to discontinue or do away with? And quite honestly, it's quite the opposite. What they didn't really understand is while we were all on competing sides these last 20 plus years selling similar products in the market, each of these individual products has its own specific application where one might be better than the other. Mm-hmm. And what we're doing through the new integration of all the companies under one roof is we're specifying and helping the contractor better understand which specific product they need for that application. So we've got marketing and literature material that we're working on now that will be released very soon that's going to show them, okay, what is my situation I'm dealing with on this particular project? What is my problem? Here's what I need to attack. Okay, well, here's the parameters you're working within. Here's what we're going to lead you to this specific product is going to be your perfect one for what you need. And every one of the products is going to have specific areas to where it's going to be requested, mandated, and it's going to be specified to be used. So every one of these is going to continue on under the full brand names that we have, as well as the additional releases that you just got the teaser on that will be coming out soon, making every one of them just that much more prevalent in the industry.
Greg, that's great news. And I'll tell you, from our perspective, over the many years, that I've been in the industry, 26 plus years, we've been selling coatings to contractors who would always ask us, is it okay to use chlorids products? Is it okay to use hold tights products? And, they were sometimes caught between 2 manufacturers who were each trying to make their own best sales pitch. And to me, honestly, digging into the details, we always felt like both products could be used in certain situations, but never wanted to weigh in as kind of the coatings manufacturer at the table to say this one might be better in this situation or that one might be better in this situation. We just wanted to stay out of that fray. And all we were able to do in those cases was just say, we don't have a problem with either of those technologies. Yeah. And then the Core Z product came along. And so we've been in this conversation that way at the same time and testing everything and just making sure we don't have a problem. So it's great. And I mentioned this earlier. You guys, by consolidating this, you're able to focus the conversation on the best attributes of all the technologies and really point customers in the right direction. And I see you doing that, and it's great. I think it's going to be an eye-opening and fantastic experience for contractors. I really do.
Thank you, Corey. Yeah. Thank you.
I think it's kind of an easy way if we wanted to oversimplify that. It's like you used to sell a drill and you bought some impact drivers and some electric screwdrivers and they all similar, kind of adjacent, but they all do it differently and they all do it a little bit betterly. You wouldn't try to use an electric screwdriver when you needed an impact driver unless the only thing you had was an electric screwdriver. And that was probably happening a lot before it all came under one roof.
That's exactly right, Jack. And that's one thing I left out of it when we were looking at the acquisition. We did a lot of testing internally. Mm-hmm. And me and Jeremy, being blaster painters, we actually did the application and we looked at it and we were like, all right, chlorid's better here. Holtite's better here. SPH's better here. Mm-hmm. It's less expensive to do this in this aspect. And we saw where we could make it work together with all of them, giving our clients the best. With 2 30-year companies, under our belt. And like I said, bringing in the people, it was a no-brainer, and it is working very well.
So I understand that there's some concerns in the industry about the newness of the SP8 technology. Are there any industry standards that are out there that can help put people's minds at ease with this new emerging technology?
Jack, we get a lot of pushback and question when it comes to the new technology with the SP8. People need to understand that, it's a product that's fugitive, that doesn't interact with the coating system at all whatsoever once you rinse it. You guys have tested it. You've found that to be. 2, the product falls under an SSPC industry-recognized standard, an SSPC SP8 pickling. It meets that standard. The rinse actually meets SSPC SP1 for any type of pre-cleaning, post-cleaning. And yes, post-cleaning is required in those blast standards and prep standards. Mm-hmm. Another thing that I wanted to mention, SSPC SP10 has been recently updated and released. And in Section 3, it talks about using SP8 to reclaim blasted surfaces. So this all meets the standard.
I just want to offer congratulations to you guys. What you're doing with this consolidation effort really is positive for the industry. You've been very successful in defining your message to the crowd. Thanks for letting us just kind of help you get that message out there today.
Means a lot, Corey. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much.
Very much, man.
We always appreciate you guys and your efforts and having you guys on here sharing your knowledge with our listeners. For those listeners who want to reach out to Corrosion Innovations to learn more, how should they get a hold of you guys?
Jack, couple variations they can do. Best one probably would be emails. Comes directly to the full group, and then we try to jump on it and answer as quickly as possible, regardless of who's traveling, vacation, whatever might be going on at the time. So it's Core Innovations is the website itself that you can go to. Sales, SALES, at Core, CORR, innovations.com is the group email that comes to every one of us.
All right, guys, thanks for coming. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you guys don't want to be left behind as emerging technology takes over this industry, you should reach out to these guys, see what they have to say. That's it for Coatings Decoded. I'll see you on the next episode.